Right now, I mean, you're looking at that large picture in the book, but what is that large picture doing? It's trying to represent the ceiling of a building. So you're not actually in the experience of the building, you're in the experience of a book. What if, I mean, that's what we play with as designers. What if we could somehow immerse a projection into that book? And so you can project it on the ceiling. And so that is a way to hopefully add to your experience.
Well, I think we're about out of time. Are there any questions from the audience before we wrap up? Oh, yes. In the back. You, sir.
I'm from the anthropology department. and I'm wondering that it's been a very interesting discussion, but we seem very stuck in old models of writing and publishing and reading and so on, and I think these brave attempts by some of these groups, I think, challenge us to really think in new ways and think looking forward, not only looking back. Because if we're going to be spending our time replicating physical books on these digital devices, why not just simply come up with new content for these new digital devices? And I'm wondering, from any of you, if you've seen really successful or beginning to be successful models of these new endeavors. Maybe we can't even call them books anymore, but what does this new experience look and feel and even smell like? But I'm really curious. Have you seen something that you go, aha, that's really good? Yeah.
I am pretty inspired by playgrounds that children play at because it's an immersive environmental experience, and if we can somehow weave a story into that physical world, I think it would be really powerful. I mean, a lot of Bryn, I'm sure you can attest to this, when children are learning to read, there are pop-up books, there are scratch and sniff or fabrics that you can touch, and I think that we should celebrate that and follow that.
And so you're saying that we should look at which environment?
Playgrounds.
Oh, playgrounds.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Yeah.
I think just kind of to add to that, if you think about the book of Harry Potter and how that world has grown into Harry Potter world, yeah. And when people go to that world, they still feel like they're reading a book or in a movie, in a scene, and taking part in that experience, kind of like that immersive experience we were describing before. So I think taking what books have started, kind of like that culture, the whole notion of literacy as well, and just expanding that to having people maybe not just stopping at literacy, but teaching people how to appreciate certain works of art or works of literature that they weren't able to before could be the next step in just literacy as well. So I think that could also be the next step in where we go.
I would argue, just sorry to be a curmudgeon, but that books such as Harry Potter create more brand loyalty than reading loyalty. In the sense that I'm not sure someone who is obsessed with Harry Potter is going to read every book and buy every product, is going to pick up with Mice and Men. And that's just my own perspective, but I do think that I see that in young children who are into the Harry Potter series, or the American Girl series, that perhaps it gets them to branch out a bit in the genre, but I don't think it gets them to be really into going to the library. It gets them to buy more Harry Potter products and to go to Universal Studios and go to Harry Potter Land or whatever it's called.
I think that by getting your kids to read Harry Potter, maybe you do get them into a new genre, and then there are plenty of places that will suggest, like, oh, if you like this, then try this, and maybe not every kid gets drawn into reading, but even if one more than would have, if that happens, I think that's a success. So I don't think you have to look at it always on a grand scale. It can be like a single person who becomes a better reader, and most will at least read.
The other thing that, looking forward, I think, is that there'll be a point when every person can self-publish a book. I mean, that's going to be a lot more popular, just as everyone can create a blog. I think there's a lot more potential for self-authoring as you turn over the means of production, the professional tools, just to everyone, that perhaps that's even more democratic of a process.
Also, when we talk about the nature of the book, moving beyond the book as a physical artifact. The deeper question is essentially connected with ways of structuring information and communicating information and then binding it to a particular form. Now that form, in the form of the book, exists as a physical artifact, but then an argument can also be made for structuring, different ways of structuring information that are intangible. Arguments can be made that in fact websites and blogs are a new form of the book. And because they hold they don't hold the structure. And in fact, another argument, a deeper argument, can also be made that the ways in which we structure information, the reason why on a tablet like the iPad or on a smartphone, the reason why, say, Oliver Twist looks like the physical book version of Oliver Twist is because the novel as a form, as a way of structuring information, is derived from and is intrinsically bound with the book as a physical artifact. So it also leads to how will the novel change? How will history books change? How will writing itself change? And what are new ways of structuring information that will emerge? We've seen blogs, we see websites, and all of these are new forms that have emerged in recent history.
Well, that seems like a good final word for our conference. I'd just like to remind everyone that the panels start at 9 a.m. bright and early, and that immediately following this presentation will be a cocktail hour, open bar, in 207C, Mark Morrison. So I invite everyone to come in, and we'll be there for a few hours. Big DJ crew coming out. They're going to set up in there. So thank you very much for coming, and we hope to see you at the panels over the weekend. Thank you.